Hey, book lovers, or should I say lovers of romance books. My name is Jalissa, a fellow reader and romance enthusiast, ready to give you more than just a synopsis. So, today I am very excited for this episode. I'm going to be introducing to you one of my favorite books of all time. This book has done so much for me as far as open up my genre range of what I read. It was so out of my comfort zone when I first started reading it, and I ended up falling in love with this genre, which is romantic fantasy. A little bit of background how I stumbled upon this book. Me and my best friend, we were walking down the aisle in Barnes and Noble, and I saw it, and I was like, I need to buy it. I don't care how much it is. The cover is beautiful. The name is interesting. I want to buy it. I want to read it, even if it's so boring to me. And it ended up being one of my favorite books. I became obsessed with it. I was so in love with it for the longest time, and I chose not to read anything else because I was just dedicated to this series. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce you From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. The cover is so beautiful. It is so detailed, and I don't think that the video does justice of what it looks like in person. The cover art is by Hang Lee. She's a digital artist, and she actually created the maps in these book series and also every single cover for the entire series. What I will say about this book before we get started is if you are not committed to reading multiple books in the series, I'm talking this series has 6 books in it, and it has a joint series that has another 6 books in it. So if you're not dedicated to that, this book is not for you. But I still recommend reading it because she is still writing many of the books from these series, and you still have plenty of time to be able to catch up. And they're also really worth it. So this book is a high fantasy book. Jennifer L. Armentrout does write paranormal fantasy, romantic fantasy, and contemporary fantasy, but she's mostly known for this series in particular. And this series went viral on Book Talk and social media, so that's how she became from a smaller artist to a bigger artist so quickly. I did not know who Jennifer L. Armentrout was. I am very much stuck on mainstream books most of the time because those are like really good recommendations from other people. So that's where I saw this book after I picked it up at Barnes Noble was social media. I was like, yeah, I made the right choice because, it went viral. But back to Jennifer L. Armentrout. She is a number 1 best-selling author, also number 1 international best-selling author, and she has written so many books. I had no idea. This one, like I said, is her most popular, but she also has 2 other series that are really popular, and she's written so many smaller books, like short stories. She started out writing short stories in high school and slowly developed 2 novels. She also is the founder of a Polycon and the Origin event. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically like a book convention for readers to be able to go and meet some of their favorite writers. I've always wanted to go, but it is held in Washington, D.C., and you have to get the tickets like months in advance. But she does have it every year if you're interested in that. Also, another thing about Jennifer L. Armentrout is she was diagnosed with excuse me, I'm not going to say this right. Retinitis pigmentosa. Sorry, I was not going to say that right anyways. Which is a disorder having to do with your retina. During her work and outside of her work of writing, she always brings awareness to her condition and how even though she does have a level of blindness, she continues to write and push through it. And she's been said in interviews like, I'm going to continue writing until I can. And I think that is so inspirational. And I love that she teaches that message to people because, I think being blind, you would consider that a hardship when it comes to writing, but she does not let that stop her, and she writes all the time. I think her message is just so beautiful, and I really appreciate it, and I appreciate her work and her dedication to writing. Um, but getting into the book, this book is a high fantasy romance, and it is generally about werewolves and vampires. Um, of course, since it is high fantasy, everything is going to be different than what you normally think of when you think of a werewolf or a vampire. The system's going to be different. There's going to be a magic system in there. The world is different. Um, the laws and rules are different. But as you read, it'll all be explained to you, and it all makes sense. I've read books where, especially romantic fantasy books, where nothing makes sense and I'm very confused, but that is how it is in adult fantasy. You don't always get it handed to you, have to kind of figure it out as you go. But I think that's the fun in it. And this book doesn't really give it to you that much, but you do tend to kind of think harder when you read it. Um, so, getting into the first character that we're going to talk about, which is the main character, her name is Poppy, also known as Penelope Balfour, but she's going to be referred to as Poppy throughout like the whole book. She is described as having red hair and green eyes and slender build. She's also called the Maiden in the book. And the reason she's called the Maiden is because that is her purpose in life. A maiden is seen in this situation as a woman who is destined to be ascended. I will explain what ascended means, but she cannot be seen, she cannot be touched, she cannot be talked to. She's always veiled all the time, and people are very cautious of her. She's considered royalty, and she's treated like royalty. And her goal in life is to be ascended. And ascended is basically turning into a vampire, in simpler words. So that is what her focus point is, and that's all that she sees throughout the book is she wants to be ascended because that's what she was taught her whole life. She also has powers. She can taste emotion, and she can also uh, I guess ease pain in a way, and it'll explain that more in the book. So, as I said before, Poppy believes that she needs to be ascended. That is her one and only goal in life. But there is also another reason why she sees ascension as very important. Of course, being a vampire is something that only the royalty can have. But when she is ascended, particularly her, something major is going to happen. It's going to make the kingdom better. It doesn't say in the first book what that is, but it does hint at it. And if you put the blocks together, you might be able to figure it out. But something really good or bad comes out of her being ascended. Another thing that's important about Poppy is she is very rebellious, and that plays along in the plot throughout the entire series, and it kind of transforms her into who she is as a person. Um, but she does sneak out of the castle all the time. She likes to talk to people, even though she's not supposed to. She does walk around unveiled sometimes. She's just very much not what she is supposed to be, and she doesn't want to be confined to her rules and her room. Um, and I think that that is what makes her character really interesting is that she is going against what she's been taught her whole life. And that makes me want to continue to read, and I know that's going to make other people want to read is just based off her character. Another thing, she does train, and her trainer is the captain of the guard named Victor. And Victor is a more of a secondary character, but secondary and main character at the same time. He's not a high up main character, but he does play an important role. He is her trainer. He trains her to defend herself. He also takes her with him when he leaves the castle at certain times. So there are people that do not finish the ascension process, meaning they do not finish turning into a vampire. And those people are called Craven. And so Victor often goes to people who are turning into Craven and helps them through the process to end things. So he takes Poppy with him because, like I said, she has powers, so she's able to take away their pain or make them see memories as they end things. And that is also a very important piece to the puzzle. Not only her powers, but also her role in helping people throughout the book. Craven, a little bit more about the Craven. The Craven are like animalistic vampires. They don't have control of their thirst. They also are, I think they can be out in sunlight, unlike the other vampires. But they're able to be out in sunlight. They are crazy, and when they bite someone, they turn that person into what they are. Um, and the Craven do play a role throughout the whole book. They pop up here and there, and they're kind of like this bridge that they have to go over. But they do continue throughout the whole series because it is a big chunk of the plot. So aside from Victor, Poppy also has another guard, which that guard, a situation happens with them and they need to be replaced, and they are replaced with a character named Hawk. And I will say, Hawk is described as being very handsome. Poppy's already really fond of him beforehand, so you can see where that is going. Um, Hawk is interesting because he makes Poppy question herself. He doesn't believe in ascension. He thinks that Poppy's too controlled, that she needs to be able to live her life. I think Poppy's like 19 or 20 in the book, and so she needs to like step out of and be a woman and be able to have her own experiences and not be confined to the castle. And that is what Hawk tells her. And throughout the whole book, she kind of is tethered from left to right about what she has to do, if she should rely strictly on the duty to her kingdom or kind of go away from that and focus on the duty to herself as a person. And I really like Hawk's character. I like how he's written. I think the author does a great job of writing these characters. When you read the book, you are going to be sucked in. You are going to feel emotions. You're going to want to keep reading. It's very, very detailed. The book is super detailed, and it makes you feel like you are there and you are living either in that world or watching it like a movie, which I really enjoy. There's another character. Her name is Tawny, and Tawny is Poppy's best friend. And I see Tawny as kind of the opposite of Hawk. She's more confined to these laws. She also grew up in the castle, so she knows how it is. She knows the system and the routines. So she kind of sees the opposite side. She's the one to pull Poppy back down to earth and say, no, you need to ascend. This is your duty. I'm here to help you and guide you and be there for you. And Poppy also has to deal with being pulled by her best friend versus being pulled by Hawk. And that goes back and forth for a while. And you kind of see the dynamic forming as time goes on. Things happen, relationships are made. And at the end of the book, there is a big plot twist, very big, and also a cliffhanger. But the good thing about these books is that even though there is a cliffhanger, you can continue reading in the next book up to, I believe, the fourth book in the From Blood and Ash series. Because after that, it's going to go into the Joint series, which is a prequel to this one. I am not sure how they connect yet. I have my theories, but I don't know how this book connects to the Joint series. They're supposed to be interconnected in some way, and as you read both of them, you will find yourself trying to figure out what's going on, as far as how they fit with each other, because they are in the same universe and they do have the same systems and rules and people and creatures and whatever, but they are seen as two different places, universes, settings. You would have to read it to kind of understand what I mean, but they're both really good, and From Blood and Ash is really, really good. So the other book in this joint series is called A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. And I know I said it's a prequel to this one, but I would not recommend reading it before this book. And I say that because even though the author does consider it a prequel, it contains way more information about the world. So when you read it and you finish it and you come to this book, you're going to know exactly what's going to happen before it happens, as far as like the world. I think it's best that you read this one first because she did write this one first. So a lot of the information that comes after in all the books are going to be based on this, what you learn in this. Another thing, this book, I forgot to mention, does have gods in it. And that is said more in the other series, versus this one. But it does talk about gods. That's what I mean by if you read the other one first, you're going to know more. This one has a lot to do with gods too, but they're more talked about than shown, and the other one is shown a lot. So I would recommend, like I said, read this one first. Also, when you read, I would say that read them in order. Order that they were released in, because there is certain ways to read this particular series. You can read this one first, and then you can read the next two of this series, and then go to the prequel, and then you can come back and then go back, and it's a lot of back and forth. But I do recommend like looking up an order to read the book. But on the other hand, if you are a purist reader and you like to know things like what's going to happen or the world more than just like the romance plot and the twists and stuff, then go ahead and by all means read the prequel. I feel like it will make a difference, but if that's your way of reading and your style, go ahead and do it. I completely recommend it. I encourage it, even as long as you read the book. I think if you read the book, you will be good. But yeah, overall, I think this book is amazing. Of course, it's my opinion, but it is amazing. There's so much in it that I think you will be blown away by this author's writing and her way of connecting dots and bringing in storylines. And her dedication to writing these books is insane. I don't know if I mentioned this, but this book is 490 pages. It's thick. And all her other books just get bigger and bigger. But you will be so content filled by the time you're done that you will still have room for more. But yeah, I really like this book. I hope that you decide that you want to read this book and give it a chance. It is completely worth it. If you have any questions or anything, or you just want to talk about books, or you want some book recommendations, go ahead and put it down in the comments, and I will definitely give you some. If you want to just talk about this book after you read it, I am open to that too. I love talking about books. Me and my best friend, I actually got my best friend to read this book, and she loves it too, and we sat down together one day and just read it or talked about it for 2 hours straight. So yeah, I definitely recommend you read it, and text me or comment down below about it, and I will definitely love to talk about it. So bye, book lovers, or should I say lovers of romance books. My name is Jalissa, and this has been the Paperback Podcast.